Hello, hello. This is Amy here, and I know people will be joining in live here today. If you're here live, make sure to say hello in the comments, or if you're coming in on the replay, we are going to be talking about improvising today. And in specific, we're going to look at some Wunderkeys resources today for improvising and getting started. I'll also be explaining some of the ways I start improvising with students, even from the first lesson, as well as some other resources from teachers at the end. Some handouts from Chrissy Ricker and Susan Staples Bell are in the mix, as well as chatting a little bit about Pattern Play by Forrest Kinney. So I see that some of you are here already. So if you want to let me know in the comments, what you're looking for today, if you are already improvising with students or if that's new to you. I know that I'm slightly terrified to be live and improvising because sometimes getting creative is messy and it might not be perfect from the start. And so it's a very good exercise in risk taking to be here today. And I love that I don't see myself as the most amazing improviser in the world. However, I have learned ways to see students smile with improvising and to create paths for creativity. So let's get started. So I'm so excited that we're here today. So one of the things I guess I wanted to chat about why we would improvise first. And when I look at improvising alongside students, some of the reasons have changed over my career. So one of the reasons I love improvising now is to firstly create freedom at the instrument. So I find, for instance, I love to watch before I start talking about position at the keys and technique and all these things. I like to actually observe how students are moving their arms. So I might start with using some big octaves down here and some resonant sounds, putting the pedal down. If you're at your instrument today, this might be way beyond you, but you also might be like, oh, that's a neat idea that we can just play some big sounds. And I might get students to play only black keys, and I might see how they move their arms. And if they're moving along with their whole body, how they feel balanced at the keys, how their fingers are moving. So that's one reason. The other reason is that music is a creative art. And even though there's so much to do with music making, to have it be reading and learning rhythm, and there's all those things, but it's also a creative art. So I love seeing students smile and make music from the very first lesson. So that's something I do right away is black key improvising. I might just have them play any black key. I might hold the pedal down for them, or I might have a parent if they're still very young. I also do this with adults, and I might start with something like a rainstorm. So having little droplets. You can try this at home too. Then I might explore sounds if we're playing black keys, but we're skipping a key in between. So we might. And it's amazing how students get lost in this world of creativity from their first lesson. The other thing I like about seeing students move around on the keys before they get stuck in one place is that I love to make sure they feel stable from the floor. So that for a young beginner might mean having a footstool under them, or it might be having an older student feel stable so that they can move across the keys and just explore that freedom. Again, I feel like watching and observing as a teacher creates some freedom technique as they explore those really low sounds or those really high sounds. The other way you can use only black keys, and then we'll dive into our Wunderkeys resources, is you might be able to use something like the blues scale. Chrissy Ricker has a handout on this recently, and this is something I've done. So I'll give you the teacher part, but it's really just the 12-bar blues, and your students can use all black keys only, like. And again, you don't have to give them a rule about where to be on the piano. So it might sound something like this. They might stay on one note to start with. And you can see that right away they might add rhythms that aren't steady. And I love that because I see students every day start to use a variety of rhythms that might be beyond their understanding, but certainly not outside of their ability as musicians. So I love that right away. So I love that Hayden is here today, still waiting on VTech, as am I. Hayden's a fellow composer and curious about creating music for toy companies like VTech. So I love that. Bethany, I am so glad you're here because you say you're terrified of improvising, but you'd love to see students not be. So this is exactly the right place. So if you're at your piano right now, you can try this later, you can redo it. But the first thing that I do if you're terrified of improvising is start to put aside those things of like, I should be able to do this. Because I know that was a real blockade for me because you can play amazing music, you can read sheet music, you can do all these things. And yet, when it comes to improvising, if that's not your first language, that's going to feel hard, like you have to be a professional to start with, and you don't. So, that idea of just playing around and creating sound. Let it linger. See what kind of sounds you like. So along with that black key improvising that we were doing on the blues scale, you can have students add the A note. And so it'll sound like, and I admit I'm a really vanilla improviser. So the blues, I love it, but it's very new to me, but it's a great way to improvise along with students. So I'm glad you're here, Beth. And then Toy Collector, this is Hayden, and he says there's a few songs you can play with only the black keys, like Farmer in the Dell, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Amazing Grace, and the first part of OC's Susanna. Absolutely. And I love that we can incorporate those familiar tunes and actually have students make arrangements as well. So the next thing we'll dive into is, so we have our 12-bar blues idea, we have our black key improv, and those keys fit really well under fingers when students are first beginning. So I often do start with them, but we're going to dive into some of the Wunderkeys materials. So if you are not familiar with Wunderkeys, it's from the team Trevor and Andrea Dow. They live on Vancouver Island too, so that's extra special for me. And they have some great ways of starting into improvising and lots of free resources too, if it's something you want to try more of. So let's get into that right away. So the first thing, if you have some Wunderkeys resources, let me know in the comments if you already have Chillin' on the Black Keys. And if you're not here with Wunderkeys materials at your fingertips, don't worry, there's going to be lots here for you to use. So one of the things is a duet book is a great way to improvise. So if you already have this book that's all on black keys, if you're in front of a piano, you can try this. And online isn't the easiest way to do actual duets, but this will give you the idea. I also have recorded all the backing tracks for Chillin' on the Black Keys. And there's also lots of backing tracks for what we'll be talking about on SoundCloud. And I'll link all those in the comments as well. And Bethan says, yeah, love the Wunderkeys. So I think that's fabulous too. So Chillin' on the Black Keys, there's these duets. This one's called Chilly Toes, and it suits playing all black keys. So there is an official song that goes with that. You can see it's on the modified staff for students. But I like breaking the rules, so I apologize, but I start breaking rules early on in music making as part of a strategy that I have. Anyway, so here's the duet, and you can play any note you like on the black keys. It's going to sound fabulous. Let's give it a try. Let me know if you give it a try too. That's just the first part of the duet, but I'd love to hear if you're going to try it now or if you might try it later, and I can link the backing tracks. And again, like Bethan mentioned, if you're new to improvising, start small, like start with achievable things. So that's a way that you can use current material, or if like Hayden here, you're already improvising and you're already composing. So hopefully this will just give new, fresh ideas, and I'm glad you're here too. So the next thing I might use is something from, let's see. This was mentioned on our Wunderkeys group, and it's called the Wunderkeys Rock Repertoire book. And again, this is a duet book that primarily uses C major and C minor, I believe, which any duet, if you know the key, many of them can work like this. And so for this one, your students might be playing the C major scale already, the 5-finger scale. You could expand beyond that. But the first goal would be just to play notes within that scale. Now, I realize that adding boundaries feels like the opposite of creativity. So let's address this right now, because as a creative, you want to nurture students that can break the rules and just explore music and create sound and create melodies. However, something I've found, and I don't know if some of you here share it. Oh, yay, nice to see you here, Joey. This is a long one, and you're a fellow musician, so that's fabulous. Thanks for being here. So we want to create students that are curious and can create their own music. However, sometimes if we create a few little boundaries, they actually get more confidence to take more risks. So as a teacher, you'll probably be able to identify your students who are total risk takers, who try all the things, who are fiddling at the piano all the time. And then you'll probably identify ones that are like, well, tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. So if they're the student that says, tell me what to do, you can start creating like mini challenges, like, hey, try these 2 notes and see if you can make a tune, or try keeping a steady beat, or let's see if we can make it sound like a rainstorm. So things like that can help. I'd love to hear from songwriters in this live stream if you've actually, what's your creative process? So do you do lots of fiddling, or do you identify parameters first? And in my Coffee with Creatives and Coffee with Composers series, I love that all the composers and songwriters identify different strengths of their workflow. Lots of them will start on a keyboard and have no rules and just do their own thing, but others decide to set some parameters first, like what level am I composing for? What am I creating? So, I love Joey here from Doing Grown Up Stuff. They have a great fun art blog and life in the real, making pizza so your hands won't be free. I love that. Thanks for joining us. So here's from this Wunderkeys rock repertoire. If you're near a piano, try using all the white notes. So essentially the C major scale, and add your own melody. I'll play a little bit of this duet here. I'll add octaves just because I can and it's fun. I'm allowed to break the rules. And you can recognize that this is a very pop stylized sort of chord progression that will sound familiar to your students. So that's one that you can play the teacher part. Students can explore playing the actual song that's written out here, or they can explore making up their own sounds. And again, for students that sometimes need to break free of rules, maybe they've had a busy week, they're not able to practice as much. This is one of those tricks of the trade that you can pull out and say, hey, we're still going to make music together, we're still going to have fun, and we're going to get creative and try new things. So I love that. Oh yeah, I'm curious to hear what a professional pianist can play on the simple Fisher-Price 8-key xylophone. Oh man, I feel like that would be an interesting strategy. I feel like I'd be like, somewhere over the rainbow. So all of us would probably choose a different tune, but I don't know that I'd go crazy, but maybe others would. Love it. Okay, so then let's dive in. Now, have those of you listening, let me know in the comments if you have one of these Wunderkeys books already, Chillin' on the Black Keys or the Rock Repertoire book. I've also mentioned so far, for those of you just joining in, that I've got this 12-bar blues improv activity. This is from Chrissy Ricker's blog, and I will link that up in the comments. It's a free resource from her. And then if you have some intermediate students, the Wunderkeys Intermediate Pop Studies for Piano, they have scales and pieces centered around different keys. And again, you don't have to improvise only using the structure of a key. However, it does create this kind of safe place for starting to improvise, and then you can build and grow from that. So I admit, I never thought of myself as an ear player because I wouldn't just sit down and try to figure out, the Pink Panther or something by ear. But I definitely started to grow when I could use chord progressions and I could create music using some sort of structure and then finding my own way. So this is the intermediate book 1. And there's these pop pattern studies in here. I don't know if you can see that, but the pop pattern studies have like a rhythm suggestion on the top and then an accompaniment on the bottom. And that's another great way of students creating their own melody. This one's in the key of G major. If you're near a keyboard, you can play anything in that G major scale. So as an F sharp, or you can just use the first 5 notes, and you can instruct students that way. Oh, good. So Bethan says that you've got the rock one that you see on my stand as well. Perfect. So you've already got what you need. This book actually has the SoundCloud recordings. I'll link those in the video description after this live stream. And you'll be able to actually try it yourself and explore. And sometimes you might get messy. I love a wonderful pianist I used to have some master classes with, Glenn Montgomery, would say, it's like being an artist, that paint is going to get on the floor. It's going to get on your brushes. It might get on your clothing when you're an artist. But if you're getting messy with music, sometimes it's necessary to create that creative path. So not an exact quote, but a concept that stayed in my mind. Okay, so here is Distance, a pop pattern study. I'll play the left hand, and then I'll show you what you can do making up the right hand. So here's just the first line. So you could play this for a student if they're not quite at this level, or they could learn that first and they can improvise with the right hand. There is rhythmic notation here to give a suggested rhythm, but I might go off book a bit. So here's me making up the right hand. So I shortened it a bit and added a little bit to it because that's the fun of it. So, oh, perfect. So great to hear from you. You popped the pizza in the oven, asked earlier whether or not we create restraints prior to writing music. And I love doing that when I feel stuck or when you're in a rut. Yeah, Joey's a wonderful musician and a songwriter. And I love that sometimes putting in a restraint, like choosing a key or choosing a topic or things like that, giving a restraint can sometimes boost creativity, which we feel like it might be the opposite. So that's great. Oh, thank you so much. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? And again, you can feel really nervous. So those of you who are nervous to improvise, it does take just a lot of courage. And one thing that I'm not good at doing is that I love boundaries. So when I see this and I'm like, okay, it's G major, and then it's a C major, going to a D major, I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. But I'm not as risk-taking with going outside the key or changing key. So although I know how to do it, I find that I still get into a bit of an analytical part of my brain when I'm doing that. So that's great. So then let's take a look at some more Resources, let's see, I was gonna cover yeah, if you have the adult beginner books, there's book 1, an orange one, book 2, and book 3. Those are another one that if you're working with Wunderkeys or if you're just curious, it has some great tools for that as well. So I'm gonna look up one of these. And again, these give some boundaries, but I encourage students to break the rules too. So this one has I like to choose some minor keys. Let's hear from you. If you're improvising, are you drawn to minor keys or major keys? So whether you're here live or on the replay, I'd love to hear what keys you're drawn to. So this one, there's just so many different ones. And I love that Andrea Dow has included that in almost all her series is this chance to get creative. So here again, I didn't find a minor when I was rushing, but this one has that pop style to A, 2, 3, 4 to C. And this is getting students started with the very first part of improvising. Again, keeping things really simple from the beginning is a path towards creating more adventuresome things in the future. So the next thing, again, you can be sticking to lots of the resources that you have. And I love encouraging that. If you've got resources that already work, I know Nicola Canton from the Colorful Piano, Vibrant Piano Teaching Group suggested too using backing tracks. So having the blues track that we were mentioning earlier on in this stream is another way of having a backing track and trying it yourself and doing it along with students. The next thing I love to do, I'll put one of my own ideas here. If you're at a keyboard again, I use this, I call it the pumpkin boogie bass, pumpkin boogie groove, because there's this great little pumpkin boogie in the Faber books. Anyways, so it's a C to a B flat to an A flat to a G. So C, B flat, A flat, and G. And it gives you this repeating bass. Again, it's a very small parameter. I often get siblings to do this, or I bring in a parent, and they just keep going with this. And then I start them with the C blues. If they're like an older student that's done more scale work, I might teach them the whole blues scale. And I can jot these things down for you if you're new to that. Or I might give them just a few notes like B flat, C, E flat, and F in the other hand. I'll show you how it goes together. I'll try to be both people here. So we start out with this groove. Thanks for listening in. You guys are awesome. Then we add some even simple. So one note is okay. 2 notes. And I'm just using those 4 notes. I might add some other scale notes now. So that's a really fun groove. And I promise you, students will feel really excited to go home with that. I often even do it on a first lesson. So let me know if you've ever tried that at home, just doing a repeated bass. So Bethan says, yeah, I love it. You can't right now, but you want to pull out your saxophone. Yes. And if you're a saxophonist, you're probably used to kind of taking those melodic detours, right? So you've got it in you, but it's hard to translate that to a new instrument. And it can be very vulnerable to work along students doing new things as teachers. And I use my quote all the time that says, we're teaching and we're being taught. So students actually love that because I say, you know what, you just did things I would never think of doing. And so I love that I get to facilitate students who will be better improvisers than I am. So I love that. Eric, thank you for being here. So thanks for thoughts about this topic. Start every lesson with improvising and usually ask students to choose any major or minor key. Then we explore various styles within the key. I love that. And I love too that you're gifting that choice to the student. Hey, like, let's do something. And you've probably done this too. I love sometimes saying like, what's your current mood? So a student might be like, oh, I'm super frustrated, or hey, I'm really happy, or man, I'm bummed about failing my math test. And then we might go, oh man, we're feeling the minors today and we're going to do something in a minor key. Yeah, so you just can kind of take some detours as they present themselves. Thanks for being here, Eric. So then the other things that I might do, I'll check my notes here and see if there's anything else I wanted to cover. Be sure to ask questions if you have it in the comments. We did take a peek at using the E flat blues. I also use the C blues after I've done that pumpkin boogie bass, because then it goes right back into being able to improvise with those notes. And sometimes having students use just like 2 notes of each change or transition that you're making. So in the C blues, I might say, okay, when I'm doing the C groove, you're using C and E flat. And they're just grooving on that. When I move to F, they could try that minor third. Back to the C. And then they're coming to G. So again, giving a little parameter can give them more freedom. And also I find, don't underestimate students' ability to add their own rhythms. So sometimes we want to say like, keep a steady beat. And some students might need that restriction too, but others might just, you'll be like, what? This student who we're laboring with, trying to teach them rhythm, trying to teach them to count, all of a sudden they improvise and they're like going crazy with these crazy fun rhythms. The other thing I'll do sometimes is split the notes between the hands. And again, it's a real special opportunity as an educator to watch a student and watch how they move when there's not as many rules. So observing their finger strength, observing their technique, seeing how their body alignment is, those are all things that we can be observing as we're gifting them freedom to explore, and then that can inform our further practice with students. So I love that aspect of that. So I think just one more resource. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you use Pattern Play by Akiko and Forrest Kinney. Again, it's the same idea of using different scale patterns. So I've chosen some easy ones if you want to play along. This one's in the A natural minor. So just all the white notes starting on A and ending on A. And there's this little accompaniment that's called strength to change. And I always change them around, but I'll play it for you. If you're at a keyboard, you can try it. If not, you can circle back to this later. So it goes like this. So this is the teacher part. I think some people here might have used Forrest Kinney's strength to change. So then this one, again, you could use only the bass too. Like if I wanted to improvise, I could just use do da da dum ba. And then make something up using those right hand A minor notes. So again, you could cluster notes within the scale, and students may do that naturally. Once their fingers are moving using other kinds of repertoire, they'll try that too. So I'd love to hear in the comments if this has you excited to get to your piano. Some of you are already doing all of these wonderful things, and if so, thank you for being here and just supporting what I'm doing here. But if this is new to you, that's fantastic too. So I will be linking in the comments some free resources from Wunderkeys. They have a piece called here on some other ones. One called A Fearless Improv, and that's a level 2 piano solo that's for improvising. That is a free resource from the Teach Piano Today blog. There's another one called Unbound, and these ones are ones you can get into sharing with students right away. And I'll link those in the video description. They also have an improv in E minor, and it's a classical pop exploration inspired by Schumann. And this one's more advanced, but I love that it has hints of a classical piece. I forgot to read this before I started, but let's, in the spirit of improv, give this a try. I think I started too slow for my liking, but I'll just circle to the improv part. So now you'll be using ideas from that, and the next part of the piece has some improvising, again, using the E minor scale. So just read it on the fly here. And this is a free resource, so I'll link that as well. So that's little sneak peeks from the Wunderkeys resources. I will also link a lead sheet by Susan Staples Bell, Dublin Daydreams, and Dapples in Grey by Susan Staples Bell as well, and a great way to add more improvising to your work alongside students. So thank you so much for being here. We are going to end with that. I really appreciate each of you. If you found value today, feel free to watch another video or like this stream or subscribe. And I have a whole collection of interviews with Coffee with Composers. So you can listen in and see what composers are doing. And that's kind of a next step for your students. We'll see you again next time. Thank you.